There we go. Does that mean we are live, Eric?
Yes, that's exactly what it means.
Very good. Well, I want to welcome everybody to this meeting of the Mason Community Improvement Corporation. My name is David Smith. I'm the current president and chairman, and we've got our other current members with us today. Might be best if Eric, you go ahead and call the roll, and we'll make sure we have enough folks for a meeting.
All right.
Hi, I'm here.
David Smith,
Present.
Dick Staten,
Here, yes.
Tom McCormick,
Here.
Michael Gelb.
Here.
Excellent. So it sounds like we have a quorum, so we'll go ahead and begin the meeting, call to order. I know we have some time difficulties or some time constraints. So as much as we can, we'd like to get to our business today, but try to wrap up by 1:30 at the latest, as in deference to our other board members. With that, I'd like to welcome Jeff Forbes. How are you, Jeff?
Very good, thank you.
I think Jeff wanted to give us a little background. I know the city has been working on this process for quite some time. And of course, the CIC is just one of the many opportunities they have to help implement the program that they've got described. But Jeff, if you might give us just a little bit of background on the CIC.
Certainly. The Mason CIC has been in existence for a number of years. And as it stands right now, it is a 5-member board. Due to a vacancy, right now there are 4 active members. But as you pointed out, with 4 members present today, that's a quorum, and you're certainly permitted to begin and advance through and conduct whatever business you need. But in general, CICs are a statutory tool that are available to communities that are there to assist for things exactly like the things that are on your agenda today. But primarily, I just wanted to make sure everyone understood, even with 4 of the 5 seats filled, you are certainly permitted to proceed with your agenda today.
Great. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate that. Again, welcome to the rest of the members. It's nice to see people, at least on a Zoom meeting. I mean, obviously, I need to visit the barber. I think there was a line of 3 hours at the local Great Clips. So I think everybody has the same idea I do. I think the governor heard that loud and clear when he declared beauty shops and barber shops open. Good deal. So, Tom, great to see you. Dick, great to see you. Mike, great to see you. Let's get started. We want to talk a little bit about the service agreement that has been presented to us today. And I think with that, we'll roll it over to Eric and allow him to describe kind of Mason City Council's thinking and what they are asking us as the CIC to do.
Yeah, if I could, David, and I'm going to give me a moment here. I'd like to. The city is doing a number of items to assist small business, and it's kind of one of those things that we've talked about it so much that it starts to become confusing the more you talk about it. So try and give it some clarity. I thought I would quickly review so you had some context here. I'm going to try and share a screen. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And this is apologies to Vice Mayor Gilb, who has spent his share of time talking through these. So we may forgive him if he reads something else. I don't know. Quickly, if you look on the left-hand side there, I'm trying to separate out the different programs that the city is involved in. And what I want to start with is kind of in the middle there. It says gift card program for $160,000. That is a program through the Mason Deerfield CDC. that council authorized a few weeks ago. We're partnering, partnering with the CDC. They will be working directly with businesses who will apply. The CDC will use those dollars to give them immediate assistance in the form of purchasing gift cards. Those, what I would call traditional gift cards, so consider an actual, plastic card that would come back to the city, and the city will then use those later on to further incentivize traffic to those small businesses. So they get immediate cash for the purchase of the gift card, and then over the following year, some return business. That is one program being done through the CDC. Once you set that to the side, next, go up to the top there. The city is waiving for all customers of the city's sewer service. Excuse me again. Waiving all customers 1 month's sewer rate. We're essentially lowering the rate to 0 for the month of July. For the typical residential customer, that's going to be a savings about $60 that we will be encouraging them to spend locally in these same small businesses. Hinged with that, but separate from that, that goes to all customers. It's a savings on their bill. We will also be using what we call an e-gift card. For every customer that sends us an email, we will send them a gift card for participating merchants for $50. And that participating merchants means any of the small businesses in Mason that accept a MasterCard and sign up through the program will be able to accept that $500,000 that will go out to all the sewer customers. So again, it's another way, and that's why these are labeled demand. It's essentially efforts to save all of our customers and then incentivize them to spend money locally. So those are 3 programs that the city's doing, one through the CDC, the other through our utility partners. And then at the bottom there, labeled under supply, that is the program that we're looking to partner with the CIC on to enter into a service agreement that will have 2 tiers of programs where we will, based on a formula and on payroll and their ability to partner with the city, we will recruit local businesses that need assistance and that fit that profile, and provide them some cash in the short term, and with the promise that if they hit their payroll numbers, they return to operations past the pandemic, then those loans can be forgiven to the extent that they are returning the payroll. And I know everyone here understands that, but for anyone watching to the city, that means they're generating the earnings tax. That's what drives all of the city services. So to help them recover, to continue to be providing that earnings tax for city services, those amounts could be forgiven. And that's probably where I'd turn it over to Michelle to walk us through a bit more detail on those pieces. I just wanted everyone to understand the universe of what we're talking about in terms of other programs, unless there's questions.
So Eric, the only thing that has been rolled out to date is the gift card program.
Well, we were on a call with CDC representatives this morning. They are gearing up next week.
Okay.
Anticipate starting to open that up to applications with a target of early June to have the gift cards returned to the city and the dollars distributed.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions for Eric before he turns it over to Michelle? Nope. Michelle?
Should I
You're
turn
muted.
off would you prefer to look at each other or continue looking at my graphic?
My preference is leave the graphic. It just gives us some context.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, David. And it is good. It is good to see everybody. I also need a haircut. In your packets, you have a couple of things to add to Eric's exclamation, excuse me, that's not coming out. Exclamation, very strange. Explanation, right? To the work that's been done over the past couple months with City Council and staff looking at structure and implementation. So in your packet, you have the council memo that was done that also goes through these programs and some of the thinking behind it, and the call to utilize the CIC via a service agreement. So we can take questions on any questions that you might have about that. I also want to just call to your attention that we have provided the service agreement draft in your packets, as well as the draft application that could help facilitate, that's anticipated to help facilitate that. So one, I thought I would start with just saying, have you had a chance to take a look at the service agreement proposed to the CIC?
I have, yes.
Certainly, yes.
I have as well.
The service agreement, not so different than agreements that we've entered into before, outlines 2 tiers of this program. And on the chart that Eric has us looking at, it talks about $700,000 that council has allocated, and splitting it into two programs, both anticipated that we would launch at the same time. Both of them, we've formulated, as you can see in the applications, definitions around who is that business. The businesses are targeted to 50 or fewer employees and under $1 million in payroll. I think we would probably structure that within 95% of that. David, you'll recall, as oftentimes we use in other organizations, it's, you want to get close to that target, but leave a little bit of leeway so that we can benefit as many companies as we can. The small businesses, many of them will, be the very hard hit impacted downtown, other retail operations, but also, as Eric has mentioned, want to keep it broad to those that also meet that criteria. They might be service providers, they might be, dentists or insurance agencies, those that have been impacted, that can express how they've been impacted and go through the application process. So we want to keep it as broad as possible, also be nimble and quick, be able to take these funds and implement them. So the first program would be up to $1,000. We would take application. The application windows, again, would be the same. We would want to align that with the programs and make a decision, get those funds out quickly, and then facilitate a partnership with that company later. And not so different than the thinking around the first program that Eric talked about, that the CDC is launching with the city. So upfront funds, and then partnership opportunity on the back end of that program. The second program that is outlined in the application that you see there is the formula-driven program that would again be similar to forgivable loan type activities that we've used before, and hopefully is straightforward. Also attempts to meet the those that have been the most impacted, and the eligibility requirements we've tried to keep very consistent with what you're seeing out there a lot, and coordinated with the CDC as well. So council's talked a lot about taking advantage of federal programs, not taking advantage of state programs, not overlapping. So we've spent some time looking at how to keep that straightforward, how to be nimble, how to get the funds out there, and implement it in via formula according to payroll, and then how to execute that on the back end so that we're hopefully strengthening the ecosystem. We know that those businesses that are identified here are really the drivers of a healthy economy in Mason. And oftentimes we talk about the large corporate network, but every corporation that moves into Mason also depends on the really rich ecosystem of all of these service providers. That's really what I know has been identified in the council conversations that make Mason strong. So that is the intent of this program, to target those. Another thing is those funds have been, we don't know the volume of activity exactly and interest that each of those subsections of the program will draw. And we're working to really put together that background and understand. I'm surely once the program is launched, we'll have a much better understanding, but we do have language in the service agreement that talks about being able to shift funds if we need to. So if one part of the program has more demand and we need to move the funds back and forth, we can do that as well to give us a little bit of flexibility to make sure that we meet the greatest need. I'm going to pause for a minute and see what kind of questions we might have from the board with this CIC language and some of the programs, the service agreement language.
Michelle, are we actively pursuing businesses in Mason to tell them about this, or do they just hear about it over the news?
Well, I think Eric's going to want to add to that, but the answer is we're moving at a pretty quick pace. So since council authorized this on May 11th, to the point where we are today with the CIC meeting, we have some very daily incremental steps, and I think we're going to want to get the word out as broad as possible. So while some businesses have already heard about it, we're working closely with our partners. We're working with the CDC and Maid Chamber and any other network to get to a point where we can launch it in a clear way and make sure that when we do, there's a place for them to go, a reference, our landing page, links to other portals to get to the application. So we're building infrastructure right now, and the intent, Dick, would be to do the best job that we can to get the word out to every small business in Mason that qualifies.
Okay, one more question. A lot of people ask me about Mason business, and some of them are actually Mason mailing address businesses, not inside the corporation. So this is for Mason small business that's inside the city corporation limits.
Yes.
Okay.
That it gets a little bit hairy sometimes. If you're a retail service provider, you must have a business address. A Mason storefront that's in the corporate limit will want to be able to facilitate and help answer those questions. And if they're not, then yes, they don't qualify for the program.
Okay, thank you.
If I could,
Go ahead.
if I could follow up on that, timing issues. So yeah, Michelle, I don't know if you could have an idea timing wise. I know with the gift card program, the $160,000 gift card program that the CDC has been tasked with implementing, we authorized that back in April 13th, and we're still waiting for that to come together. And I'm now hearing it's June that may roll out, but hoping we can get these at least the $1,000 per business trench of this in place. And I don't know if you know timing wise how quickly that process can come together and what that timeline might look like. And is there an application deadline or something that is going to be out there? Any thoughts along those lines?
We have a lot of thoughts. And Eric, why don't you take the CDC one?
Yeah, let me jump in there, and maybe I misspoke. And we talked with them just this morning, about 2 hours ago. The CDC is hoping to have their gift card program from the city funds, hoping to have that wrapped up by June 1st, which means within that week, the selection, the funds would have been released, and the city would have the gift cards in our possession. So they are geared up and ready to do that. If anything, the city has slowed them down a little bit, because to Dick's question, we want to make sure that as they are promoting and advertising for that portion of the program, that same messaging that goes out to those businesses also indicates that there are other opportunities for the city programs.
Okay.
So to Dick's message, we're trying to use every iteration of that to continue to cast that net wider. And it's important both for the consistency of the message, given the number of programs here, as well as to capture the right audience that we make sure and use their process to let those people know that this is just one stage of what may be a multi-stage process. And at the same time, we're gathering the information that would help for the applications and the communication access to all of those businesses. So it's managing data and it's the phases, but the CDC is well underway.
That's good to hear. Yeah, because these I think are designed. I don't know of any other city, municipality across Ohio that's doing these kind of incentives for their small businesses. But if all this gets into place, it certainly is a great opportunity to incentivize the business community in Mason, Ohio. So
Vice
hopefully,
Mayor,
go ahead.
I would add to that you know, understanding and have heard, you know, council's emphasis on the importance of, you know, quick action. And I know we're happy that we could get the CIC scheduled Friday, you know, even before next week, and know that, you know, every day counts in terms of hitting the ground running. So I think we'll be able to, you know, report back on some answers to when do we see that window opening and how quickly can we do it, and is it yet this month? You know, but I certainly would echo that we feel the urgency of that message and that ask, and that the CIC board members are hearing that, and we want to do that as quick as possible. And I also think it was really helpful with the you know, the ongoing CDC information coming in to make sure we do it in a way that you know, has a good pace to it, so that we don't confuse anybody that, you know, one is, you know, the same thing as another. So I think working on that messaging, working on that language, want to be clear. And then again, to Eric's point, make sure that there's opportunity if, you know, qualify for one and, you know, a second program that we can be clear and provide a lot of good information in a timely manner, but in an orderly manner. So I think we're in a hurry and are working on that.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I don't know if you have, my second question was the application process. Is there a deadline, or how quickly does that process come together and people can apply for these funds? Do you have any thoughts along those lines?
We've talked about some deadlines. Eric, do you want to?
The answer is no. We don't have any deadline that we're willing to publicly say in this live stream, because we will make sure the infrastructure is in place. We don't want to set some expectations there that can't be reached. Certainly our ambition is to run that kind of sequentially with the CDC program. So I would expect after June 1st, we would be in a position to, you know, well, by June 1st, there will be a date certain within June when applications would be due. There are some steps in advance, both on the communication piece, you know, to make sure everyone has the ability to hear about it, work through their backlog of communication so that they're aware, can get their application in, and then there will need to be time on the administrative end to sift through all that so that you have a sense of the need, and then you can work the formula backward to what the awards may actually be. Is that helpful, Vice Mayor, without giving you a precise answer?
Yes, very, very good. Yeah, I just wanted to, so I know there was some concern in council with regard to the CIC managing these funds, as we haven't met as a committee for some time. There were some, I think, administrative concerns about how quickly we could get that done, but I'm hearing that we're going to be able to move with all appropriate speed, and as we can pull it together, it will come together, and shouldn't be a big delay.
From a city staff perspective, we have reoriented, and we have scarce staff, as you're well aware. We have reoriented some of our top leadership. That would include Michelle Blair, Joe Riegelsberger, Jennifer Heft, and this is their priority. That means other things will be neglected, but over the next couple of weeks, it's the few, but all hands on deck to move this initiative forward.
David, that's all I have.
Thanks, Mike. To follow up a little bit on what Mike was asking, you know, first, you know, I really want to compliment the city on doing this. I mean, this is very far-reaching and very well-informed initiative that's going to help Mason business. And I really want to compliment council on stepping forward, and stepping out and doing this. Secondly, we talked a little, or Mike talked a little bit about, CIC is really almost a virtual organization. We have no staff, we have no money, we have no resources. So the really important bottom line here is that the city staff, as Eric pointed out, Joe and Jennifer and Michelle are going to work diligently to make sure this is accomplished. We are in effect a conduit to allow this to happen. And Jeff Forbes, correct me if I'm saying anything wrong, but we are a product of the Ohio Revised Code, and the Ohio Revised Code allows a CIC to do certain things that a city cannot do by itself. And it was created because the state understood, and the state legislature understood, that the communities needed other resources to help them accomplish their interactions with local business. So again, want to make it very clear that we are not in essence going to administer this. We are the conduit to allow it to happen. Michelle?
Can I ask this is Tom McCormick. Can I ask a couple of quick questions and follow up to David's comment? With timing being an important issue of this thing, what role will the CIC play in approving the funds and the distribution and things like that? I know you've mentioned that a lot of this will be formula based, but will the CIC make approvals on a company by company, applicant by applicant basis, or will we kind of oversee the tranche of money that gets distributed out there, and basically you'll come, the staff will come and say, we've got $50,000 to deploy that's met the qualifications. I guess I'd be curious to know how you see the CIC administrating the process or participating in the process, might be a better way to describe it.
Is that you, Eric, or do you want me to take that?
I think I may take us off the share so we can, it's easier maybe to know who's talking.
There you go.
You want to take that one, Eric, or do you want me to answer?
Well, I can start, and Jeff may want to chime in. I think this is a little bit uncharted territory for all of us, really. We've tried to devise a program that is pretty objective and formula driven. What we don't know is the scale of the need, and that's part of, to roll this out, you kind of have to cast it out there some maximums, see what comes back, and then allow that to kind of drive the formula. So the principles are sound there. I think we have a process that will be pretty self-directing, but what we don't know is what we don't know. And what I would anticipate is that we learn a couple of things. There may be some wrinkles, there may be some kind of tiers that we set out there that may not make as much sense in practice. So I can see us coming back to the CIC with a report on what our progress has been, and then maybe B, okay, how do you want to handle these couple of wrinkles or these issues that we didn't foresee? That's the best answer I can come up with when I don't really know what we expect to learn. And Jeff, go ahead, Michelle, I'm done.
I was going to say, as an example of learnings, when we've done forgivable loans through other parts of the city, I think we learned doing that. What if you don't quite, what if you are just slightly over $1 million in payroll? Can I still qualify and meet all the other criteria? And I think we've learned a little bit of flexibility, David, in there where we implemented that within 95% of that target. So some of those policy type learnings, would help. And that's the type of thing I think we'd come back to, the board with to want to look at how, these are easy ones. They fit the formula. They're within the demand that we structured, and we can do that quickly, but we probably will have some questions too that, that could help us make the program as effective as possible that we don't know to ask right now. Jeff, do you want to add to that?
Not much to add. I mean, we really created this in a way, we put a lot of work into it to hope that it would be fairly self-executing. But like both of these guys have said, as we get through the program, there may be some questions that will need further guidance from the CIC board. If all goes well, this program will probably execute and administer itself. That was our hope as we created it.
And I mean, I think our head right now is, as we've mentioned, get the word out, use the communication piece, build the infrastructure behind it, be able to launch it. And then that, like all the other programs that are out there, there's a window, there's a open and close of application, and then the rally to get those out of there. So I think, that's our trajectory right now. A lot to be done there, and reporting back to the board on the success and data that we get from that, and status, I think will be certainly important to have the CIC understand, as well as council, because I think council doesn't know all the right questions and answers also, but this is a really good, strong start to a structure, one that, especially on the formula piece with forgivable loans, that we have experience at, and the formula drives our ability to help, help as many businesses as possible, make it as uniform as possible.
And if I could just,
Yeah, Mike.
just to clarify, so Eric, I think I heard you say that the CDC gift card program, we're kind of working together with them, kind of learning about information they're learning, sharing information about this program, kind of working together to pull that together. Is that appropriate that we're learning from the CDC together with this program?
Yes, we're kind of on parallel paths, so maybe even deeper than that. As folks are going through the CDC, we're gathering that same information from them. So it's, as much as possible, it's kind of a single application process. It may not be that way, but we're harvesting their data to the extent we can and using it to inform our program. So they may be a little ahead, but we're in somewhat parallel paths.
So David, I don't know, are we ready to discuss the service agreement? Maybe?
I think so. Michelle was, I think, saying something, but she was muted. Let's hear what she had to say first.
Yeah, I think I was going to say this is a really nice, broad Mason-based board, and to the extent that having you informed about these programs to help get the word out and in your circles as well is definitely something that we're going to want to take advantage of. So to the extent that we're developing links and information, et cetera, we will definitely make sure that gets circulated to the board for your you're spreading around the community as well. So I think we'll definitely benefit from that and keep the dialogue open.
Great. All sounds good. Mike, to your point, let's discuss the agreement. It's been presented. Everybody has a copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody have specific questions about what's contained in the document?
I would just say I read through it. I thought it was fairly well put together in terms of how the program would come together, and thought it met the intent of the ordinances that adopted it. So I think it's appropriate that we would adopt that service agreement.
Yeah, I read the.
Appreciate that background. Yeah.
I read the agreement twice and I didn't find anything in there that disturbed me. I do want to compliment the city and the city council for doing this, because as I was thinking about when this is all over, it would be terrible to walk down through the streets of Mason and see storefronts closed and out of business. So I think this is a positive thing. We're telling our small businesses and I applaud council.
Thank you, Dick.
Mhm.
Then, if I may, just procedurally, if I can sort of help things along. Obviously, you should feel free to discuss this as much as you want, ask any questions that you might have. At the appropriate time, though, I think what would the action that we're hoping that the board would entertain is a motion to allow the president of the board to execute this service agreement. That's the action that the board would need to take.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
And David, I would make that motion that we authorize the president to enter the service agreement that has been presented.
Thank you, Mr. Gilb. Appreciate that
Right.
motion.
I second the motion.
A second by Mr. Staton. Are there any questions? Hearing none. Let's see, how do we, I guess we have a voice vote. Please, Eric, please call the roll. We've had a motion, it's been duly seconded. Please call the roll and let's determine the vote. Say again?
Dick Staton,
Yes.
Tom McCormick,
Yes.
Michael Gilb,
Yes.
David Smith.
Yes. Okay, well, looks like we have given ourselves some work. We're gonna have to hit the ground running, I'm sure. Thank you very much, Eric and Michelle, for your excellent explanations. Jeff, thanks for being here with us. So in addition to what we had on the agenda, we have a section for old and new business. One of the things that I'd like to call your attention to is Eric and the staff have assembled I thought a really comprehensive background about the Mason CIC. Appreciate them pulling that together. It's it tells a lot about what we've done in the past and what some of our capabilities are. Eric, I don't know if you want to comment on that any further.
I'm glad you pointed out, because I think the CIC, and maybe you mentioned this early on, is sometimes it's kind of under the radar, and doesn't always, we don't always meet, we don't always have a project, but it is one of those things that when you look in hindsight, you look back at all that you've accomplished, it's been a very effective tool for the city of Mason. And David, we just tried to put together from our perspective some of the history there, but you would be the best spokesperson to really cover that history and really look at everything that the CIC is hand to hand in, everything from the Veterans Memorial to the tennis tournament, Mason Christian Village. The city, a lot of what the city looks like and is today is because of the efforts of the history of the CIC. And for the other board members, it might be remiss if we didn't acknowledge that David Smith has been on the CIC since the beginning. Is that true?
Pretty close. I've earned this. All the gray hair I've earned.
Well, we have a great track record. I don't think there's anything to apologize for as far as what the CIC has been able to accomplish.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Eric. Jeff is involved. Jeff Forbes is involved in some other CICs I know, and is a very knowledgeable person in that. And I would say CICs across the state of Ohio have taken very different roles, and some of them have been fairly active and aggressive, but in all cases they're partners with the city and or whatever municipal organization or corporate organization they're part of. And as part of that, we're mandated by the Ohio Revised Code to have 40% of public employees either elected or appointed as part of the board. So it shows that partnership, and I think we've had that same partnership for the last 40 years with the city, and we appreciate the opportunity to help the city today.
David, it may also bear mentioning, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
That's okay.
we know that we, the city, is your favorite as well as Jeff's favorite CIC, but we also know we're not the only one that you provide leadership to. So it is a great compliment to the city that we have you involved in it. Didn't know if you and or Jeff wanted to speak to how much were your favorite compared to the others? Not to be honest.
It's 2 thumbs up on my end.
My mic is not working right. I'm breaking up.
So I think we wanted to talk a little bit too, as far as old business. We've talked a little bit about cleaning up some of our code of regulations. And I know particularly an electronic meeting. I mean, electronic meeting was never dreamed of when this organization was formed. We're very fortunate that the state passed, legislation to allow this to happen, because it's a new day, it's a different time. But I know our code of regulations needs some updating, and I don't know, Jeff, have you been working on that, or with Eric, or I know you've got some recommendations that we need to be considering.
Yes, I mean, I've worked on it along with Michelle and Eric. And I think actually you made a really good point about being able to meet electronically like this. When this CIC was established in I think 1979, it was right from the beginning, it was designated as the agency of the city of Mason for these types of purposes. When a CIC is designated as an agency, that then subjects the CIC to all the same sunshine law rules, with some certain exceptions specific to CICs. But in general, it makes you subject to the Open Meetings and Public Records Acts. And what we have found is, over the years since the CIC was created, there have been some new laws, some new interpretations about sunshine laws, and it would be appropriate to update your code of regulations to incorporate some of those changes in the law, just as well as some just cleanup items about how often you meet, when you meet, how you conduct your business.
Okay. So Michelle, Eric, can we get some input from your end as we move forward with this? We certainly don't want to get into it very deep today, but we might want to consider getting back together, checking on the progress of the service agreement, see how things are going, and then also perhaps getting a little bit deeper into the code of regulations at that time.
Yeah, I guess.
Yes.
I guess I just asked Jeff, understanding, David, that our code of regulations currently doesn't authorize electronic meetings. Jeff, are we on legal standing in terms of this meeting? Do we need some kind of motion to authorize it?
No, actually, that's part of the beauty of a CIC being designated as the agency of the city. You're subject to all the existing laws and regulations about public meetings. That also means you benefit from the recent state action that allows this type of video conference, teleconference meetings during this emergency period. So when that expires, just like city council eventually will have to go back to in-person meetings the way we're used to, then the CIC board will go back to in-person meetings. But right now, you have the benefit, just like city council, planning commission, any other public body, to meet electronically like this.
Jeff, I had a question about the executive sessions. I'm assuming that CIC is limited to the same topics as city council?
Correct.
Okay.
Your earlier question, what I would hope as we roll this out is that kind of in a similar window, end of month, early June, that we'll know enough on progress that it might be timely to have another CIC meeting, to dig into those regulations, as well as give you kind of a status report of what we've learned, if we need other direction. So if we can kind of forecast out for that as we get closer, we may send out some requests trying to a good date to meet.
Okay. And perhaps, again, I know we're really limited on time. That would give us an opportunity then to talk about the vacancy and filling the vacancy on the board.
Yes, we can do that.
That makes sense to everybody.
Yes.
Yeah, I would maybe just ask Jeff a legal question. We're certainly authorized to continue to proceed the way we are, even in light of that vacancy. Doesn't prohibit us from moving forward with adopting the actions that we need to adopt.
Correct. That's, and I probably didn't say this very clearly at the outset, but you're right. There is a vacancy on the board, and it's up to this board to fill that vacancy with some specific statutory requirements that, because of the makeup, it will have to be another public official from the city of Mason. But in the meantime, you are 4 of the 5 seats that are active, and that is a quorum, and you can continue to take action appropriately. It's, as I sort of explained the other day, it's no different right now than if you had all 5 seats filled, but one person was unable to make it to the meeting today for some reason. The remaining 4 members can certainly proceed with any action necessary.
So no urgency at this point. Excellent. Okay. Eric, is Executive Director, I'll look back to you and say, is there anything else you would like to bring forth for our consideration today?
No, do not have anything. We're anxious to get moving on this. We know there's a lot of urgency, and with your action today, that's kind of the final starting gun. And we have a lot of work ahead of us, but we have a lot of folks enthusiastic to get done and get some assistance out there rapidly.
Well, I certainly can't speak for everyone, but I'm excited that you're getting this underway, and we'll accomplish something on the behalf of the businesses of Mason. So we're really happy to be part of that.
And I would underscore what Michelle had mentioned earlier. With the 4 board members here, we have some very well-placed folks in the community. You have your own contacts and constituencies. We hope to have some solid messaging early next week to direct folks to. And if you can assist us by word of mouth, sometimes is the most effective way to get a message out there. You 4 are very well placed to help us on that, getting that word out there.
Yeah, and I would just add, this certainly is just a small piece. Certainly getting the economy reopened, getting businesses back to work is going to be the driving force behind keeping all this together. And this is just a mechanism to help people in the meantime. But certainly encourage the governor and all those in state government to reopen Ohio and get us back to work.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah, I agree.
Board members, as I'm looking at the packet, I'm not certain that in your packet was the draft application. Did you receive that?
Yes,
Okay.
I saw. Yeah.
I saw.
Vice Mayor Gilb has it, yeah, from council. So I'll forward that as well. So you have it, and it's a draft, but as Eric said, begin to have things available online, then that will be available to everybody in the public and talk about eligibility and getting everybody as aware as possible. I'll
forward that along with you.
That's a good idea. Yeah, we'll forward that chart. And then also, David, we can coordinate after this to make sure that we can execute the service agreement and get that in place as soon as possible.
Sure.
And Eric.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
How about to
All
the
right.
barber?
We know where you live.
I am going to the barber for sure. If I can find one that doesn't have a line around the corner. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Thank you, Mr. Staten. Mr. Gilb, thank you. I saw your hand first. All right, with that, all those in favor, please just raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Aye, all right. Well, thank you so much for being here today. Again, congratulations, board. We're happy to get this under our belts.
Thank you, David.
Looking forward to it.
Eric,
See you
Michelle,
soon.
thank you.